This is Vaca Muerta. It's the biggest place outside the U.S. that's producing shale, and it's Argentina's answer to the Permian. Do you think the next shale revolution can happen in Argentina?
Yes, no doubt. I think we have everything in place for the revolution to happen here.
Vaca Muerta is in the Neuquén Basin in Argentina's Patagonia region. The formation covers 12,000 square miles and has 5.2 billion barrels of oil equivalent that can be produced in the future. That's just 11% of what can be produced in the Permian.
The quality of the rock is, in our opinion, better than the U.S. It's very thick, and probably the productivity of those areas are 3 times the productivity of the areas that you have in the Permian or Eagle Ford.
Argentina's majority state-owned energy company, YPF, is leading Vaca Muerta's development. They own almost 50% of the region and produce 64,000 barrels of oil equivalent a day. And YPF chairman Miguel Gutierrez is optimistic.
By 2020, we will double the production from Vaca Muerta.
If the Permian is in the 3rd inning, then Vaca Muerta is still in batting practice. YPF ramped up development in 2015, years behind the Permian, and their wells were expensive.
If you go and see how the U.S. market started and the pace at which they developed, I believe that we will reach to that point, probably starting in year 5 or 6 from now.
I'm standing on one of 2 rigs here in Lama Campana, and this rig's going to drill 6 wells. Each of those wells could produce 800,000 barrels of oil equivalent over its lifetime. Pablo Bizotto was just promoted to run YPF's entire upstream operations. Before that, he was the head of Vaca Muerta, and he says the key to success is development costs.
Our development cost is around $13 per BOE, and our objective for the next year is reach out $10 per BOE.
Why is $10 BOE so magical?
Because this value of development cost put Vaca Muerta in a competitive position with another shale development.
So you could be competitive with Permian and Eagle Ford in the U.S.?
Yes.
The goal is to hit that magic number by 2020, which would still be 2 years behind schedule. One problem is logistics. Translated into English, Vaca Muerta means dead cow. And walking around the region, you can understand why. It's barren with few paved roads, unlike the U.S. So YPF has to use technology to catch up with its peers.
We are reducing our development costs by the geosteering technology.
YPF has control rooms to operate remotely. A geologist and an engineer sit together to monitor drilling a well. And once it's producing, engineers will stay in the control room 24/7 to monitor its progress. Out in the field, one person could only monitor 80 to 90 wells. From the control room, they can monitor 250. And these changes are critical to attracting capital. YPF has the land, but they need the experience and money, and that comes from big oil.
Frankly, what we are looking for is experience from the U.S., experience from companies that went through the same cycle, or can bring technologies that eventually we don't have here.
Shell, Total, Exxon, and Chevron are all in Vaca Muerta, and YPF hopes they invest billions.
There are more than 15 companies operating in Vaca Muerta.
Juan Jose Aranguren is Argentina's energy minister, and he has high hopes for the region.
I reckon that we will start moving from, let's say, $4 or $5 billion per year to around 15 by 2021, 2022.
And a key piece to that is labor reform.
There have been some extra charges that the union leaders have agreed to reduce in order to become more productive. And in the end, we reckon that nearly 20% of the current costs can be reduced as a consequence of the new agreement that has been reached.
President Macri's administration has relaxed labor laws that once crippled energy companies in Argentina.
In future, there will be a better understanding between companies and the unions in order to see exactly how many hands you will need in order to perform an activity.
The hope is that reform will put billions of investment on the table, but others are not so optimistic.
The conditions outside of the United States, in places like Argentina, are not the same. Is it going to be easy to develop? The answer is no. the U.S. had the perfect conditions. Outside of the U.S., Argentina, Middle East, and Russia, you don't have that same type of environment to attract capital.
Argentina isn't America, and political risk does run high.
What reassurances can you give them that what you do during your time here will remain once you're no longer in office?
No, that's the reason why the country or the people in my country have decided to change the administration.
They could change it back.
Of course, of course.
So what happens if they change it back?
Well, energy business is a risky business. The same happens in many different countries in the world. And of course, this is something that can change in the future. And when you talk about the country risk, this will be taken into account by investors.
With most majors on board, Argentina hopes to now entice the small independents and private equity money that forged shale's success in the U.S.
I have discussed this issue with Rick Perry, with the Energy Secretary of USA, because we need also to see opportunities with American medium-sized companies coming to Argentina to develop Vaca Muerta. And this is something that we need still to work hard in order to make this as an opportunity for the country.
Would you ever go to Vaca Muerta?
You know, there's a lot of political risk. Anytime you go to another country, you go down and develop the technology and the oil fields and everything, and what happens? You know, government, it just can't help themselves. They just have to nationalize it.
So you'd be scared to go to Argentina?
I think, you know, shareholders don't like to be put at risk.
And the real test for Vaca Muerta will be in the next 5 years. YPF wants to grow shale production by 150% and cut development costs by 25%. Can it live up to the hype?
I'm sure that by that time there are 6 gas pipelines connecting us with the neighboring countries. I hope that in 5 years' time some of them will start flowing natural gas to the neighboring countries. Our aim is to secure energy for our country, secure energy for the southern tip of Latin America, and thereafter the following 5 years will tell us if there will be opportunity to export elsewhere.
And the world is watching. If YPF can pull off significant development of Vaca Muerta, it will prove the shale revolution can thrive outside of the U.S. And if not, it could stunt shale's growth. Coming up,
it's the largest resource that remains on the planet.
How the U.S. shale revolution changed the world.